power of the people reigns supreme than the people in power. Good evening and welcome. This is Face the Nation. Phenomenal victory for Nishad Wijetunga, who is now holding the top job in Sri Lanka, the head of state. We have a new prime minister. We also have a new election date, that is the 14th of November for the general elections, and the new parliament is to convene on the 21st of November as well. Now, joining us this evening on the show are individuals who would speak about the way forward for the country. We have a new government in play. Let's look at who's joining us this evening on the show. Dr. Paikiasothy Saravanamuttu, Executive Director of the Centre for Policy Alternatives. Ambika Satkunanathan, former Commissioner of the Human Rights Commission of Sri Lanka. Jayantha Karunaratne, Chairman of the National Chamber of Exporters. Dhammika Fernando, Chairman of the Free Trade Zone Manufacturers Association, as well as Nishad Wijetunga, Chairman of the Sri Lanka Association of Inbound Tour Operators. To pose questions from our panelists this evening, on to my immediate right is Dhammika Karunaratne, on to my immediate left is Nadeem Majid. You too can join in as far as the conversation is concerned. The number to send in your messages via WhatsApp is 076 656 5353. The number once again, 076 656 5353. Let's get the ball rolling today with Dr. Paikiasothy Saravanamuttu, Executive Director of the Centre for Policy Alternatives. Dr. Saravanamuttu, let's talk about the election overall. What happened? If you look at the numbers, Nishad Wijetunga went on to get 5.6 million votes, Sajith Premadasa 4.6, Ranil Wickremesinghe 2.2 million votes, and the rest is just history. Do you think if Sajith Premadasa and Ranil Wickremesinghe contested together, that they would have reigned supreme and they would have become the president or the prime minister, or is it just a protest vote that we saw at this time around at the presidential poll? Your time starts now.
Well, I mean, as you look at the figures, Nishad Wijetunga gets 43%, Sajith gets 34 or whatever, and 32, and Ranil Wickremesinghe gets 17. So the combination of those two, yes, would have come much closer to 50 or even above 50%.
50.3.
Yeah, exactly. So in that respect, yes, but of course there were all sorts of personality issues and all of that which prevented them from coming together. But I suppose the interesting point is now that that election is over, is that you had a majority of the people of this country who didn't vote for Nishad. Although if you put his votes and Sajith Premadasa's votes together, I think one can call it a vote for change. But they didn't fully trust the JVP, if you like, or trust Nishad to vote for him. And particularly, the other point is with regard to the North and East, or the North in particular, where his vote share is very small. And so, in terms of a general election, if the NPP is going to form a government with an overall majority, that is, take 113 seats at least, it does have to look hard at what it needs to do to win over those who did not vote for Nishad Wijetunga.
Dr. Sara, is it really necessary to think about the Northeast vote as well? But if you look at the way in which how Gotabaya Rajapaksa at the 2019 presidential as well as general election fared, he did not get the support of the Northeast as well, but the other areas, the districts per se, he won a majority which accounted for 6.9 million of the votes in question.
Yes, he won something like 60% or whatever of the singular vote. Nishad Wijetunga didn't. And Nishad Wijetunga is talking about a country in which there are different ethnicities and religions, and he's talking the rhetoric of inclusion. So in that respect, I think he does have to reach out to everyone and show that he is a president of everyone, whereas Gotabaya Rajapaksa famously said, no, that he was the president of the Sinhalese because they were the ones who voted him into office.
Dr. Sara, the slogan itself, the anti-corruption rhetoric, played a significant role at this time's election. How do you view this, going for a general election now in 2 months or so? How important is it for the government in play to maintain their credibility and integrity when it comes to fighting corruption? Because we've on the show spoken about it many a time as well.
It's up front and central. I mean, Anukumara Dissanayake ran basically on two planks. One was that the two main parties of the status quo had been given a chance for 70 years and they'd screwed things up, and that he was the only person who would do anything about corruption, which was absolutely toxic and rampant throughout the whole system. Now, he is, in the next 2 months or whatever it is, till the 14th of November, of course he can't bring any new legislation or anything like that, so he has to rely on what he can do without having to go to Parliament. And that he must do, and in a sense, there is a certain sort of, I don't know whether it's the beginnings of a change of the culture. We've seen all those vehicles returned voluntarily, you know, so maybe there is a change in the environment. But one thing is absolutely clear, he has to demonstrate serious, meaningful intent with regard to corruption, or else he's going to have difficulties, not just in election, but
very
after
quickly, Dr. Sara, before I move to Ambika. Now, if you look at the Colombo district, if you recall the slogans that were spoken of at political fora, one fact was the long queues that was seen at gas stations, petrol stations, the 13-hour power cuts. But look at the Colombo district. The Colombo district went on to vote in favor of Anukumara Dissanayake and for Sajid Premadasa, for the Greens, as we articulate. It was a massive blow. So the people in Colombo alone, they were not really concerned about economic development, is it? It was a national anti-corruption drive that came into play. And how do you decode the victory of Anukumara Dissanayake? Very quickly.
In Colombo?
In Colombo.
No, I mean, the young people in Colombo, and also those, to the extent that there are the bureaucrats, the members of the police force, armed services, etc., they all voted for him also because Anukumara Dissanayake is, in a sense, in terms of his credentials, is truly a man of the people. You know, we haven't had a candidate. I mean, I know that people refer to R. Premadasa and Maithripala Sirisena and all of that, but this is someone from the rural part of the country who never had all of this. And so I think there is a certain sort of empathy, a certain identification on the part of those people. I mean, and in Colombo in particular, the suburban areas all went for him.
Dr. Sara, one final question. This is going to be the last question in your opening round. From 300,000 votes, 3%, to 5.6 million votes, isn't this a slap to all mainstream political parties in the country?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it is, he is building on the legacy of the Aragale at the end of the day. And the point is very simple, that the political status quo, the elites in this country are decrepit. And they have to go.
Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Sara. I now move my attention towards Ambika Satkunanathan, former Commissioner of the Human Rights Commission of Sri Lanka. Ambika, were you able to listen to the speech that was, the inaugural speech that was made by Anukumara Dissanayake today at 7:30 p.m. across many national televisions? So just coming back into that statement itself, it was a 10-minute long speech, but we did not see him talking about human rights per se, because right now as we speak, Sri Lanka is under the hammer once again at the Human Rights Commission in Geneva as well. We are looking at a review again in March next year. So what should be the top priorities for Anukumara Dissanayake and his government as we move forward for a general election?
Where the speech is concerned, I had a quick listen. Thankfully, it was short. I was actually happy it was short. And he mentioned, I think, equality. He mentioned disability rights. He mentioned women, children, education, even animal rights, I think. So it was, and given that was his inaugural speech and this is an interim government, we are going into the parliamentary elections, I don't think we can expect him to go into a detailed, policy speech. So in that sense, broad brush strokes, which is fair enough. But where priority is concerned, I mean, everything is a priority, and rights are not something that, rights is it's not only just freedom of expression or police brutality. Health rights, access to health, access to education, all that is human rights. And he did touch upon all that. I think rule of law, I would say the rule of law, that is where all of it starts. It's about the government and the president should abide by the law and the constitution, and they should ensure that all the state entities need to abide by the law. In that regard, I heard Vijitha Herad's speech when he took over his office, and he did tell the police that they need to abide by the rule of law, that no one from their party will call up an OIC and require them to do X, Y, or Z, and that they need to ensure that they, abide by the rule of law. So once again, I think that is a good message, because we need political will. It has to start from the top. So at least where rhetoric is concerned, where policy is concerned, they seem to be going in this correct direction. But of course, it comes to practice. We need to see how they put that into practice. I am glad you mentioned, it connects also with the questions you are asking, Sarah. You mentioned the Human Rights Council upcoming. The resolution that we had is coming to an end. And what is being discussed now is called a rollover, which means it will be renewed for 1 year, all provisions of the resolution intact, just renewal. And there have been negotiations ongoing with the previous government. Now, you asked whether the North and East vote was important. Of course it is. And if he had got the vote, then clearly, he might have passed that threshold quite easily, but he did not. The reason he did not is because of the history that the JVP has, and their politics has been tainted with racism, for the war, don't touch the war heroes, no human rights violations took place during the war, etc., which means that the Tamil people are deeply concerned. And what the government could do now is agree to the rollover, and it can be a consensus resolution where the government doesn't oppose and it does not go to vote. That is one way in which they can show the Tamil people and they can show the North and the East that they mean what they say about pluralism and diversity, equality.
Right. Ambika, if you look at the speech today itself, we all know that Anurukumar Dissanayake came to power with the anti-corruption slogan, the anti-corruption rhetoric that really was the center stage. But today in his speech, we did not see him mentioning about corruption. He spoke about economic governance, how important was the country's economy, and that is going to be his top priority in the next few months. Did this raise an eyebrow?
Not really, because it depends on how clearly the perception out there, as Sarah also mentioned, the perception even amongst the other political parties, politicians and the public is that they will be clean. Whether that is true or not, we shall see. But that perception was demonstrated by the fact that all those vehicles were left abandoned overnight, so many of them, because what they fear is that they will come after them. That perception is a good thing, because people fear that the rule of law, that the law will be implemented, that they will be held accountable. Now it is up to them to ensure that they maintain the public faith.
So very quickly, Ambika, before I move to Jayantha, if you look at the 1994 presidential poll where Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga was elected to power, she spoke about naming and shaming individuals who are corrupt. She said that they would be brought to gaol-face. And when you see the events that are unfolding right now in the country, where we see vehicles being parked outside the presidential secretariat, Vasant Samarasinghe said there were several other locations as well. There were 213 vehicles that disappeared during the last couple of decades, which was attached to the presidential secretariat as well. Do you think all this is a bottle of soda and it will just come down to nothing in the next few months?
Well, we hope not. But what feels familiar to me is that even when we had Yahapalana, after Sirisena won, the same feeling, right? Because there were revelations even at that time about various corruption, and we thought, oh my goodness, they're going to take action, something is going to happen. And soon we found out that did not happen. That is also because, coalition government, and they had a lot of, I suppose, hangers on. There was patronage politics, and JVP does not have that as yet to our knowledge, but there could be other factors at play as well. So all that I can say is we hope not. We hope it will not be a repeat of 94 or 2015.
Right, thank you very much. Ambika Satkunanathan, former Commissioner of the Human Rights Commission of Sri Lanka. I now move my attention towards Jayantha Karunaratne, Chairman of the National Chamber of Exporters. Jayantha, the sentiment initially, prior to the presidential poll, was that the business community favored Ranil Wickremesinghe more because there was some sort of economic stability in the country. Subsequent to the appointment of Anurakumar Dissanayake, we see a lot of messages coming in. We saw the manner in which how the Tea Export Association, which you were the chairman at one point, also issued a statement congratulating the current president on his role. How do you view the business community's sentiments right now? Because you represent Sri Lanka's backbone when it comes to exports. So tell me, how is the sentiment of the business community right now in terms of the appointment of Anurakumar Dissanayake?
We were talking to all political parties, all presidential candidates before the election. And we had a meeting with President Anurakumar Dissanayake also. And we had a very close conversation with him. And I think most of us, the exporters, the chamber, and also the tea export, we were happy the way we was talking, because we all wanted a corruption-free environment for us to work. Because we all know the biggest problem we face here is corruption. So the corruption is something we need to eliminate, or if we can minimize, because now I think today we saw stock market moving up, the rupee is getting strong, and then it's all positive. So I think the business community is in favor of it. Not that we were not supporting any party, but as a national chamber, we spoke to all parties, and we gave them our document, what we want. We told them what we have lost since 2020, during COVID time till, financial crisis and the current situation. And then we said what we want for the future. So we gave him everything. So I feel we can work with him. And, their team also is in touch with us, so we can negotiate things with them.
Jayantha, if you look at the last couple of months, it has been a very difficult period for the exporters. Why? The last few weeks that were leading up to the presidential poll, the dollar started appreciating, the rupee was depreciating, there was no stability. But what is the call you have from the new government in play? Because we know that the Ministry of Planning and Economic Affairs as well as Finance is held by the president right now. In the immediate short term, what is the expectation of the business community from the incumbent president?
What we want is to, with regard to dollar, we want a stable currency. We have been always asking not to keep, changing, to try and maintain the dollars at the same levels. That is one. And the second thing is, we have had a lot of issues in the past. The tea industry and also the other export industries, they all need a lot of solutions, but it needs time. Now the government is only 3-4 days old, so we can't expect things in such a, short period. We are lobbying, for all those things. So immediately what we are looking for is a stable dollar and to continue. But, they have not done any major changes, with regard to other things, with customs or things like that. We have asked many changes like automation and things like that, but I think it's too early. But the stable currency is something we want, and not to interfere too much into the affairs of the industries.
Very quickly, Jayantha, tell me, how important is it at the upcoming election for any government to have a majority? Do you think a hung parliament is going to solve Sri Lanka's problems, or is it important for anyone who comes into power has to have a resounding majority, at least 113 plus at the next parliamentary election?
My personal view is we can argue for both, on parliament or a majority, in the parliament. But whatever it is, I think people have realized we want a stable government. We have lost a lot of things during the last few years, so we want continuity. So the continuity is very important. But the many people, different parties represent different viewpoints. So all these are important to us.
But if you decode these numbers, I did a quick calculation. If you look at the numbers that Anurakumar Dissanayake won with regard to the other political parties, how they fared at the last presidential poll, Anurakumar Dissanayake looks at approximately around 100 seats in parliament. So you are going to see a hung parliament if the people's sentiment remain the same in the next 2 months. So how important is it to win the hearts of the people, at least now? Because this is clearly not a vote for the NPP. This is a vote for Anurakumar Dissanayake as a person, isn't it not?
Yes, definitely. Definitely there is going to be a change at the general election. So I think
You're
maybe,
optimistic.
yeah, no. What I feel is that they may not even get 100 sometimes. So it all depends how they'll handle the next 2 months.
Do you think that this was a vote for Anurakumar Dissanayake and not for the NPP?
People were angry. I don't know, to people. They are not very happy with what happened during the last 20, 30, 40 years. So this was the vote against them.
Right. Thank you very much, Jayantha Karunaratne, Chairman of the National Chamber of Exporters. I now put my attention towards Dhammika Fernando, Chairman of the Free Trade Zone Manufacturers Association. Dhammika, interestingly, just prior to the polls, economic pundits of Sri Lanka decoded manifestos of many political parties. And they said, especially bodies like the Advocate Institute, said that the only blueprint in terms of the country's economy was that of the SJB that could be taken into account, and that was more practical and pragmatic as far as the country is concerned. But people did not listen to any of this. What was the sentiment of the business community in Sri Lanka?
Well, Samir, to tell you first about, rather going into the sentiments of the business community, you see, the people of this country have taken a huge leap of faith on a kind of a rookie set of people, electing them to power, so that, and also one other thing is, the post-election, pre-election, there have been no violence and all that, and this is something which is, which shows the country to the world that our people can be, quite resolute and decent, and shown that, we had turbulence before, the Aragalaya thing and all that, but people have shown that the ballot is mightier than the bullet. And talking about the business community, see, I represent by and large the exporters, in the sense FDIs, foreign investment, and local investors who are doing 100% exports. So the sentiment of ours is, as he mentioned previously, we also have gone and met all these three the major candidates. That's the President Anurakumara, and then Sajith Premadasa, and Ranil Wickramasinghe as well. So what we felt, actually, I personally felt that Anurakumara's policies and this policy framework is quite pragmatic when it comes to this, the Pohosat Ratak Lassana Jeevitayak, the policy framework, or commonly called the election manifesto, is something which has given the policies, principles, not only the policies and principles, but the action plans as well, and based on the people and the country, and on the 4 pillars which they're talking about. So we didn't have any kind of ambiguity about the NPP's or Anurakumara's knowledge and the kind of the action plan sentiments about the economy. So there was no doubt at all.
Dhammika, now you represent the Free Trade Zone Manufacturers Association, and if you look at the Free Trade Zone, it was a brainchild of the Premadasa.
Not Premadasa.
No, but it started really booming in terms of the garment industry, all that while Premadasa Senior was in play. So my question to you now is, how do you view what's happening right now in the country? You spoke about FDIs. You spoke about how important this type of business for the country as well. Do you think the international community would be coming to Sri Lanka and investing money in a hung parliament situation if we have a general election on the 14th of November? Should we have one?
Yeah, very pertinent and important question. You see, Samir, 80% of our foreign industrial income is brought by the BOI companies. So we represent not only the free trade zones in the country, the 14 free trade zones, but those factories established outside the zone under the BOI law. So as you said, it is, I mean, people don't, what brought you here will not bring you there. So people will not stay the same and harp about, what I have done or my father has done, right? So that's something which is gone. But anyway, rather talking about history. So we need investment. We need, Anurag Kumar is talking about it right in his first speech also, that we need to expand this economy. The country's economy needs to be expanded. This is contracted to the very, very, small economy. So without expanding the economy, the country cannot run, country cannot pay back the debt. So for that, foreign investment is sine qua non. And then, how do you bring that? Because firstly, everybody was talking about corruption. We need to make the country corruption free. And then inviting to the, the economy should be kind of need to have the outlook of invitation, inviting the investors. But now what is happening is that because, take ease of doing business. Where are we? We're nowhere.
So you think Andhra Kumar Dissanayaka's government can correct all this?
Of course, I believe that they can correct, because the main thing, the most important thing is the corruption at the top. So when the top is right, everything flows down.
Right. Thank you very much, Dhammika Fernando, Chairman of the Free Trade Zone Manufacturers Association. I now move my attention towards Nishad Wijetunga, Chairman of the Sri Lanka Association of Inbound Tour Operators. Nishad, we saw just prior to the elections, there were some travel advisories that was issued by several countries prior to the elections in Sri Lanka. Did this impact tourist arrivals to the country? And the second question is, do you think a post-election in the country which went without violence is admirable? And this is a good way of attracting new tourists to come to the country, even as we are going to face another election in a few weeks' time from now.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, so it was really creditable that we were able to have one of the most peaceful elections here without any incident. Travel advisories were in place, but I doubt that would have really affected the arrivals much, because the arrivals started getting affected much earlier because of the visa crisis. And I don't know whether you are aware, but currently the only way any tourist can come into this country is by taking a chance, coming to the airport and getting a visa on arrival. There's no facility for any business person to get a visa before they come into the country. There's no online platform, and they have purposely stopped the missions issuing any visas.
I'm trying to understand, Nishad, when you say purposely stopped.
Yeah. I'm telling you that with responsibility, because I have been involved in this whole process. And when I say purposely stopped, we had a system called the ETA system, which was the electronic travel authorization. Very simple, started in 2012, was hailed as one of the best in the world, or at least in this part of the world. People would apply for a visa, and within 24 hours, maximum 48 hours, they get a confirmation. Okay, they pay $35, or if you are from a SAARC country, you pay 20, and if you are a child under 12, you don't even pay a cent, right? This was in operation since 2012, and it was working extremely well until on the 17th of April. On the 16th of April at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, there was a circular that was issued by the Controller General of Immigration, saying that they are changing the system. The ETA system will be stopped at midnight, and a new system taking over from midnight on the early morning on the 17th. That turned out to be a very, very complicated and very expensive system. The visa that was available for $35 and $20 for SAARC countries.
Nishad, because right now there is a court case on this.
Yes.
Let's leave this aside for the moment.
So, so that is, you asked me, so that's I'm responding.
Yeah.
Basically, that's where it all went south, and basically numbers started dropping.
So, Nishad, now we have to look at the country moving now onwards. Like we saw the manner in which how even Kanchana, who was the Minister of Petroleum and Industries, said there is so much of fuel stocks, I'm leaving the country with ample fuel stocks, so on and so forth. I want to just pick your brain. Tell us about the tourist arrivals thus far compared to last year figures. So if we're doing a post-mortem, we can do that after December to see whether the tourist arrivals have dropped or increased, or whether the government in play has done well to attract tourists to the country, because they are somewhat bringing in a lot of revenue for Sri Lanka's economy as well.
Yeah, so if tourism has been talked about as the lowest hanging fruit, the best way to get build up our foreign reserves, and this has been the rhetoric right along. But unfortunately, at every turn, there has been some issue or the other, and of course, as a result, when we just start picking up after 2019, we had the COVID and all that, and then the economic crisis. And even after we started picking up from the economic crisis, we faced this issue with the visa, and again, the numbers have dropped. If you compare the 2023 arrivals in January to the 2024 January arrivals, we had a 170% increase month on month from 23 to 24. This continued, of course, not at 120, but it went up to 120, then down to about 100%, and it kept improving. It maintained that momentum until April, when it started going down below, ending up at around, I think, less than 20% at this moment. So there were targets set, and the targets will not be achieved. However, if we are talking about going forward, we have had, like these gentlemen said, we have, tourism sector also has had various discussions with the different parties. And actually, we were also consulted, the different sectors in tourism were consulted by Mr. Andrakumar Dissanayaka's team, economic team who are handling tourism.
And were you happy with what they proposed?
Yes, because when they launched their policy, of course, it's not 100% what we would like, but at least it was very, very positive. We found that they had actually done the research.
Was it better than the policies of the other two main candidates?
Yes, I like to believe that, yes, because if we found that they had actually done the research. They had gone out and done the research, and even when they met with us and we suggested certain changes, we found that when the policy was launched, those changes were taken into consideration. There are little things that need to get sorted out as time goes on, but right now I feel that we should we are looking at it with an open mind.
Right. Yeah. Very quickly, Nishad, I usually ask this question right at the end, but there's a lot of, there's an expat community, there are foreigners who are watching this show tonight. If you are to give them a message to visit Sri Lanka and saying Sri Lanka is safe, what would that message be?
Sri Lanka is safe, and I have absolutely no fear with the upcoming election, and I think having been through the election in the last weekend, I'm fairly sure that our people will be restrained and they will not get back into the old habits.
Right.
So I think it's quite safe for them to come, and we are looking at November, December, January, which is the beginning of the winter season, and it's the beginning of the tourist season, and we are I'm sure they will have a really good time, because November 14th we finish elections, and then going into December it should be a good.
Right. So your message to the Minister of Tourism, Vijay Herath?
The Minister of Tourism
Vijay Herath is the minister right now.
No.
What's your message?
No, tourism is under
the President.
Mr. Andhra Kumar.
So what would be your message to him? Because you said there are some concerns with regard to issues.
Those concerns are
those issues and all that.
Those are, yes. So we would like that matter resolved very quickly. We have actually written to him, and I'm confident from the response we have got from the tourism policy people in the NPP that the matter will be resolved pretty soon, and I think today's court proceedings also guaranteed that. And also the other thing that we needed is a promotional campaign, which is on the brink of being launched when the elections happened, and my message is for them to please carry through with that, because that has gone through all the scrutiny, and I think
corruption-free.
Yes, and I think they can keep it corruption.
Right. Yeah. Thanks a lot, Nishad, for your thoughts as well. I go in for a short commercial break. Stay connected, stay with Face the Nation. In our second round, we'll be having a Q&A with our panelists tonight on the way forward for Sri Lanka. There's going to be a constructive engagement to get and pick the brains of industry experts as to what Sri Lanka should do in the next few months as we head to a general election. Stay connected, stay with Face the Nation. You too can join in as far as the conversation is concerned. As I said before, 076656535 is the number to send in your WhatsApp messages, and I would be delighted to take them to the panelists tonight. Stay connected, stay with Face the Nation. We will be right back.
Get ready for a night of spectacular talent on a stage like no other. It's a competition that makes the nation proud. One dream, one winner, countless hearts to capture. In a single night, in a single moment, lives will be changed forever. What will happen this weekend? Don't miss a moment. Sri Lanka's got talent.
Semi-finals, අවසාන දවසේ pre-finale එකට ඉදිරියට යන්නේ.
Sri Lanka's Got Talent semi-final this weekend at 8:30 p.m.
සිම්පත හරියට ලියාපදිංචි කරගෙන තියෙන්න ඕන. සමහරවිට දන්නෙත් නැහැනේ.
මේ සිම්පත කොයි තරම් වැදගත්ද කියලා මේ දුරකථන පාවිච්චි කරන හැම දෙනාම දන්නේ නැහැ කියලා තමයි මම කියන්නේ.
මැයිවලින් පස්සේ ලොකු ගංවතුර තත්ත්වයක් එන්න නියමිතයි කියලා. කාලකුණ විද්‍යාඥයින් අනතුරු අංගවන පසුබිමක ඔබ කොයි විදිහටද මේ අපේ තෙත්බිම් සම්බන්ධයෙන් දකින්නේ?
කොළඹ නගරයේ තියෙන නාගරික තෙත්බිම් වලින් 21%ක් තියෙන නාගරික තෙත්බිම් වලින් වැසි ජලයෙන් 39%ක් රඳවා ගන්න බව.
දැන් විලත් නගරයේ කටයුතු කරන කට්ටිය දැන් එනවා පරිපාලනය නගරයට. ඔතන මේ දන්න හැටි අපි ගත්තොත් අලවතුකොට එහෙම නැත්නම් කිඹුලවල ප්‍රදේශයේ අපිට තියෙනවා රැයට කෑම කඩ. ඉස්සර එක තිබ්බ කොහෙද? කොළඹ. දැන් ගොඩ දෙනෙක් මේ පැත්තට එන්න පටන් ගන්නවා. මොකද ඒගොල්ලන්ට අර පොළ පාට ගතිය. මේ තියෙන බ්‍රීස් එක කියන්නේ ඇඟට දැනෙන වෙනස අනිවාර්යෙන් දැනෙනවා.
ජාතික මෙහෙවර සතියේ දිනවල උදෑසන 11ට.
Companies play better politics than the politicians of today.
We are not supposed to play with the people's expectation. Then it will be a huge disaster.
When you're bankrupt and when you're going to bankruptcy, two different.
The grandfather is saying it is going to take this long. What does he know?
It's about lack of sense of humor in Sri Lanka.
Issues that matter the most. Unfiltered discussions. Real answers. Face to face. Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on TV1.
Welcome back. This is Face the Nation. So let's open the questions from our journalists tonight. Jayantha Karunaratne on my immediate right and Nadir Majid on my immediate left. Let's start off with Teruni. Yes, Tarun.
Thank you, Shamir. My first question I'd like to direct to Dr. Sara. I heard you say in a recent interview that the mandate that the people of Sri Lanka gave to President Anura Kumara was conditioned with a certain amount of caution, as much as they were enthusiastic about it. So as much as President AKD has admitted it, you also just said that he needs to win over the people. And there's not much time, only 2 months more until the parliamentary election. So you also said that, since the parliament has been dissolved, it can't involve the parliament, there's no time for new laws to be drafted. What do you suggest he should do to lay the basic groundwork to win over the people?
Well, I mean, if you look at the 43% or whatever the vote that he got, people who didn't vote for him in terms of geographical location and all of that are obviously the north and the east. Now, what can he do to win them over to the extent that I think he got about 14 or 15% of the vote there? What can you do to win them over which does not require going to Parliament? I mean, he can start saying that, he's going to implement the 13th Amendment, which is the law of the land, in full. There is no reason as to why that can't happen. He can also start returning land. He can also, I don't think he has to go to Parliament to reduce the military. These are all things that...
Yeah. Dr. Sara, I just want to quickly ask you, I'm just getting some questions from our panel, our viewers. Mr. Anura Kumara Dissanayake went on to appoint P.G. Mahipala, who was appointed by Ramesh Patirana as a Secretary to the Ministry of Health, and then went on to appoint the current Treasury Secretary, who is also an appointment made by Ranil Wickremesinghe. How do you view this? Because Anura Kumara Dissanayake came into power saying that he wants to transform the country, but he went on to appoint these two individuals to important positions in the government hierarchy.
I think Anura Kumara in government recognizes that there has to be change, but there also has to be a degree of continuity, that you can't do it abruptly. In any case, he needs a supportive parliament to do the drastic, radical reform. So, I mean, I don't see a problem with it for the next 2 months until the general election. We don't know whether things will change. But it is continuity with change, if you like. And there is a fair amount of change that will happen. Now, people might turn around and say they're just gestures. But nevertheless, the optics are important because the constituency that he has got is very much supportive of anti-corruption. To hold it together, to expand it, to show that he is actually doing something is very important.
Jayantha, if you look at the appointments of governors to respective the 9 provinces, we saw the manner in which how he appointed Dr. Hanif Yusuf, who was one time leading one of the biggest conglomerates in Sri Lanka in terms of logistics. Yeah. How do you view these appointments? Because at the end of the day, this also shows the strength of the government in power, and these positions will not change until otherwise the president requests them to step down.
Yeah, he's an entrepreneur, and I think I feel it's a good move by the government, by the president, to appoint him, because they need people like him to work with. So, and also if you look at the other appointments, so they are not corrupt people, but the Hanif Yusuf from Colombo, he's a businessman, and he have done a lot of things in Sri Lanka and outside. So I feel it's not a bad thing, but I think people have to watch exactly how they are going to handle their work. But it's not. I don't think it's a bad thing to do it.
I'm getting a lot of questions today on Face the Nation, so I'm trying to pose these questions as much as possible to our panelists as we go along, giving some opportunity for our viewers as well. Corruption was rife in business as they enabled the politicians so they would be able to make some money and their companies grow. How will the Anura Kumara Dissanayake faction deal with this? Why shouldn't a tender board be appointed right away if we are to see an anti-corruption drive in the country? Why isn't the president doing this now?
I don't know whether there is any room for that kind of a committee to be appointed. But I think, people are watching, if there is any corruption, private sector is very active we will take it up with the people concerned. So I think appointing a separate committee, I don't know whether there are any provisions in the laws to do that kind of thing. But I think the public should be aware of it.
So we have a question for Ambika as well. Ambika, you spoke about Anurukumar Dissanayake not faring well in the north and east. Does that mean that Sajith fared well and it was thanks to the ITAC who supported him?
Not really. Because if you look at the north in particular, you find that there are people who voted for Sajith. In certain places, even the common candidate got much more than what we expected. And then we've also had people voting for Ranil Wickremesinghe. So what it shows is that also that the influence of political parties is waning, in that they cannot influence people to vote a certain way. The fact that people still voted for Ranil Wickremesinghe shows that. An example, if you take kites. In kites, Douglas Devananda is the one who has control. He threw his support behind Ranil Wickremesinghe. But who got the most number of votes in kites? It was the common candidate. Yeah. So then you're like wondering, what's going on? Then you look at Batiklo. That is where the common candidate is from. But that is where he also polled quite low, the lowest. What does that say? It says the people are voting, they're putting more thought into the vote.
But don't you think, Ambika, that was a proxy candidate who was all supported by Ranil Wickremesinghe?
There are rumors and rumors, but I mean, there was...
whether it's Ranil Wickremesinghe or the common candidate, the intention was to split the vote.
I mean, there were rumors that he actually supported it, not that he supported, that he wanted it to split votes, and then he changed his mind. But the people still voted. That's what I'm saying. Look at the people, not as to where it came from. The fact that people still voted for him shows that there are some people who are sick of just voting for what they consider to be the least worst option for them, or the least evil. So they felt like they wanted to vote for someone from their own community, right? So that means that all political parties must put more hard work, whether it is Sajith or, SJB or JVP. That is what it shows. The fact that the vote in the north is split shows increasing sophistication, that there is quite a lot of conflict even within the community, and that political parties have to work harder to get their vote.
Dhammika, I have a question for you as well from one of our viewers. I want to switch to Nadeem after this, and then Tharuni momentarily. What will be the progress in Sri Lanka's apparel industry? And is there any possibility to achieve the FOB prices given by the international buyers and have sufficient margin according to current financial status in Sri Lanka?
Yeah, apparel's target actually, before the financial crisis is that bring it beyond $5 billion, right? But then by 2025 to bring it up to around $8 billion. But then again, we felt a certain slump in the industry where, mainly when it comes to apparel, it's the economic downturns in Europe as well as in USA, because the war situation with Ukraine and these things, and there are many other geopolitical factors affected, as well as the country's internal crisis situation, because the cost of production, cost of manufacturing has skyrocketed with the electricity high, unimaginable electricity tariff.
So do you think Anurukumar Dissanayaka's government will reduce electricity prices as they have said? They said that they will reduce fuel prices. Would we see all this in the short term as promised by the Anurukumar Dissanayaka faction?
Say, even close to the presidential elections, the government has reduced the electricity cost from what they have taken it up drastically a little down. Now that we are a little par with the regional, countries on electricity tariff. But I think the Anurukumara Dissanayaka's policies and the NPP policies are quite pragmatic. When it comes to power...
Would they reduce?
That is what I'm going to tell you. Power and energy. Have you gone through their power and energy policy? That is very comprehensive, based on 50 sort of, action plans, where they bring down the ways and means how they can bring it down to further down, while keeping the sustainable energy thing also in the map.
If you look at it, Dhammika, 5 days from now, they have to decide on what the fuel prices are going to be for the next month. So do you see and expect there to be a drastic reduction? Because what we saw, individuals like Roshan Ranasinghe in his political campaign said fuel could be given at 195 rupees a litre, whereas right now it's 340. So do you think there will be a significant reduction in fuel prices in 5 days from now?
I don't know about Roshan Ranasinghe's rhetoric, but I would say that NPP government, and I believe in Anurukumara Dissanayaka when he says that we will going to facilitate industry, because they have certain short-term measures that they've spelled out, and medium-term measures, and the long-term measures. So in this policy document, I've read very well, and that in short-term measures, of course, the employees, the reduction of employment tax, as well as pay tax, and also certain measures to bring down the cost of living.
The pay tax cannot be reduced up until April next year.
Well, I think that it's not. You are talking about the budget period.
No, the pay tax.
Yeah.
Because that has to start, if you're doing any changes, that has to start from the financial year, which is the 1st of April.
Well, there is no hard and fast rule as such.
Okay.
But then again, you have asked about the industry, to help industry, about the fuel cost, electricity cost, and many other things like transport cost is also, in the sense, logistics cost is also matters very much. Right. So all these things can be brought down to a certain level, but not something which is unrealistic, like 195 or something like that.
Okay. So Dr. Sara, the election outcome registers 3.5 million eligible voters didn't cast their votes this time around. This is an alarming trend as we head to a general election. To what could this be attributed to?
Well, yes, it is somewhat disturbing that 3.5 million did not cast their vote. Now, there are those, of course, who are out of Sri Lanka who don't get a chance to vote. Yeah, so that's one component. But I think there is a trend, if you like, where people are not overly enthused by the candidates on offer. Certainly, Anurukumara Dissanayaka is a very popular politician in this country, and he does have a personal vote. But I don't think the rest of the country, and certainly the rest of the leaders that are available as options, actually inspire people. And given that we've had the worst crisis possible, we want a vision. We want a leader who will take us out of that situation. And I think that is what we have here, that, people just were fed up. But at the same time, they were just uninspired by the choice that they had. And of course, yes, with regard to voting for the NPP, they might have been influenced by the stories about what happened in 88, 89 and all of that. But I think it's a problem that we have, and maybe it's not just a problem in Sri Lanka as well, maybe outside. Maybe the age of leadership in politics, where the leadership is pivotal, has passed or is passing.
Mr. Wijetunga, if I can bring this conversation to you on the topic of tourism itself. We know that a growing issue in tourism in Sri Lanka is that tourist visa holders are running businesses illegally, predominantly on the southern and eastern coasts. In fact, this has been reported on quite extensively as well, and last year the tourism minister and the SLTDA had pledged that action would be taken. As far as we're aware, there has been no such action. In fact, investigative journalist Namani Vijaydas in a piece had pointed out that this is predominantly being done by Russian and Israeli tourist visa holders. How much of an impact does this have on you? Because we know that taxes are being dodged, the domestic financial system is being circumvented by by payments being made overseas. Local businesses are suffering as well. How much of an impact does this have on Sligo? And are you confident that the new president will address this situation promptly?
Yeah, so good question actually. This has been a problem which we brought to the notice of the authorities that were many times. We have written letters, we have given details of what was happening and everything. It affects us really badly because Sligo, one of the fundamental requirements of joining Sligo is you have to be registered with the SLTDA, which means you are a formal sector organization which pays all your taxes and is basically, that's the playing field that we are on. So these guys bring in a completely unbalanced, there's no level playing field when you look at all these operators. And also there's no money, there's a lot of them on the coast and they're starting restaurants and various things, and you have some of the political hierarchy in the past going and visiting these places and, praising them and doing all this nonsense, right? Whereas they don't realize that their money is all parked out. And they operate with a simple mobile phone. They come rent a place, so that is exactly how it works. I don't want to specify about the nationalities, but what you stated is the majority are those nationals. On the south coast, southwest, mainly the south coast, and in the Arugambe area, because that is predominantly where you find all the surfers and things like that. So the country loses, the image of the country goes down because it's completely unregulated, so tourists who come in actually have bad experience.
Has there been any study or any research into how much tax rupees have been lost as a result of?
We have not done such a study, but we have wanted the statistic department of the SLTDA to actually do some research. But the point is, there's no way of actually finding out the correct
rough estimates.
Yeah, it's always rough estimates.
So, Mr. Wijetunga, why do you think it is? You mentioned that you've seen people from the political hierarchy going to these places, frequenting these places, patronizing these places as well. Do you feel that that's one of the reasons why over the past couple of years, despite extensive reporting in the media and complaints from groups like Sligo, domestic operators in these areas, these places have been allowed to continue functioning, despite being outed on social media sometimes as well, with no action at all being taken by the tourism authorities, by the police. In fact, we've seen instances on video of police providing security at some of the events organized by
so that's what I was going to get to. Basically, there have been, the SLTDA per se has tried, but by the time they get to that point, there's nothing tangible that they can actually get.
So are you confident that Mr. Dissanayaka's administration will address this?
In fact, that is something that we really took up with them very seriously. 5 or 6 issues that we took up. In fact, we have also written to the president after he was installed and also taken on the tourism ministry. And this is number 3 on the list. It's the visa, the promotion, and then this matter. So, because actually, more than us, it's the micro and small stakeholders in those areas that get affected.
Very much so.
Right? I mean, these guys are renting surfboard, they are renting bikes.
Shopkeepers.
I mean, those poor guys, actually, it's like a ticking time bomb because you never know when it's going to, and I have seen this in the south. I have seen little explosions happening with the foreigners. And if you go down there and talk to some of those entrepreneurs,
there is definitely a sense of anger and abandonment.
So Ambika, just want to pick your brain on the fact that it has been 15 years since the end of the conflict in Sri Lanka. In Anurukumar Dissanayaka's plate right now would be the accountability, reconciliation issues that would take center stage as far as the Tamil-speaking community who are affected by the war is concerned. What must he do right now to ensure that their rights are protected and we are on the right track? Why I'm asking this question from you is respective governments after 2009 have only spoken about reconciliation, have only spoken about accountability, but nothing concrete has taken center stage. And what must Anurukumar Dissanayaka do?
Well, we don't know whether accountability is on his plate. I fear it may not be on his plate.
And why is that?
Why is that?
Shouldn't it be on his plate?
Okay. I would like him to prove me wrong. But the reason I'm saying that is historically, if you look, they have been pro-war. They have been against accountability, against holding the armed forces accountable for the violations committed. And even 2 weeks ago, towards the end of his campaign, he said that Tamils do not want justice, they don't want accountability, that they only want the truth. And that is worrying for the Tamil community. And also the other thing is the appointment of the secretary to the Ministry of Defense. He's a man who has given interviews speaking proudly about the 700 plus missions that he supposedly personally flew. So clearly he would have been part of bombing the hospitals, etc., all those violations that have been documented in various UN reports. So that to the Tamil community, to human rights activists, then you're like, well, that is not a good sign. But of course, we would like him to prove us wrong. No one wants him to prove us right, because that means the community still will not see justice or truth. What can he do? As I said, right now, what he can do is in a few weeks' time, in Geneva, the Human Rights Council resolution will be coming up for, well, it ends and there will be a rollover. What the government can do is agree for it to be a consensus resolution. They should not oppose it so that we do not have to go to vote. A consensus resolution will tell the Tamil community that they are committed to justice, to truth,
so
to reconciliation.
It's strange that you mentioned that a couple of weeks ago, because a couple of weeks ago we had a member of the executive committee of the NPP here, and when we asked them about what plans they have around the transitional justice mechanism, around the 13th Amendment, there wasn't much clarity. And in fact, on the exact form that a transitional justice mechanism would say, they said that they were not aware of any such policy that the NPP already has. Given that that is the case, are you confident that in a couple of weeks when they go to Geneva, that they will sign on to roll over this resolution as a consensus resolution?
I don't know. I mean, I have...
Is it wishful thinking?
It is, well, we don't know. I mean, for instance, Harini Amarasuriya, I mean, I do know her. And she is a progressive. She has talked about the racism, majoritarian mindset, etc. But then she's just an individual. Just because she is the prime minister does not mean that she can go against party policy. And she's part of NPP, not JVP. So we are very aware of that, right? But what we would hope for is that they will do that. But do I think they will? I have serious doubts.
Let's take a look at actions that can be taken in the short term here. We saw in the aftermath of or actually during the election broadcast as well on social media, there was plenty of vitriol. And a lot of people, page admins, etc., easily identifiable if there is the will on the part of law enforcement to pursue it. There were memes referring to people in the north and east as donkeys, for example.
I saw that, yes.
Do you feel that law enforcement should use the ICCPR Act to chase down these perpetrators?
No, I am really not for criminalization. The ICCPR Act is supposed to protect our rights. I'm not for increased criminalization, arresting and imprisoning people. You're not going to change minds through that. And of course, that is insulting. That shows there is deep racism in our society. But I do not want the person who came up with the meme to be arrested and imprisoned. Absolutely not. We must have clarity on that, right?
Yeah.
We need to change minds. And of course, it's about self-regulation. regulation. If it's on Facebook, what about their community standards? Why aren't they implementing them? Why aren't people reporting? So there are many ways to counter this. Arresting everyone at the drop of a hat, I am so against that.
So how, go ahead, Terry.
If I may? Okay. So since we are on the topic of human rights, and since Dr. Sara mentioned 88 and 89, I'd like to ask you now something that the JVP, which is the the predominant party of this NPP government, something that they haven't been able to shake off is the fact of their dark past. So my question is now, the result of this election showed that the disgust that the people had in the political system of the country seemed to sort of outweigh the dark past of the JVP. From a human rights perspective, I'd like to know your opinion about this and about the path ahead for the new NPP government.
Well, there were people, even my friends, who said, you know, they remembered 89, the late 80s, and they said, we will never vote for them. Or people who were affected in some way, and those people did not vote for them. So I think the people who voted for them, large majority, probably also youth, younger people who don't know history or know it, didn't experience it, and therefore they didn't care. So it could be also a combination, because at the end of the day, people are pragmatists. The Tamils, at the, you know, in the election, which one was that, where they voted for Sarath Fonseca, right? So pragmatism. But what the JVP should do is that now that they are in power...
The NPP.
Sorry, the NPP. Freudian slip. Freudian slip. The NPP is that they, I mean, we're not actually power because we have, you know, the parliamentary elections are still upcoming, is that they need to formally acknowledge it. But still we have a president, so they need to formally acknowledge the past, officially acknowledge, and also apologize. But then there's also accountability on the state's part, right? Because the state also disappeared many youth, and nothing has happened regarding that.
So, Dr. Sara, what is your take on this? It was a very pertinent question that...
Well, you know, in 2016, there was this task force on reconciliation mechanisms, and we went all over the country, and we went to north, south, east, west. I remember a meeting where there were about 400 people in Mathura, and when we asked them about this, and this was echoed elsewhere as well, one thing that they said, we want to know the truth. We want the government to acknowledge the truth. And by implication, they also mean that the anti-government forces must acknowledge the truth with regard to the terror. You know, so both sides have to do that, and now the JVP is the government.
So, Dr. Sara, on that note, you know, we discussed this previously on Face the Nation as well. There are around, I believe, 25 mass graves that have been discovered in Sri Lanka thus far, and many of them, I think actually the majority of them actually are in the south of the country, stemming back to the period of the terror. Are you confident that now that the JVP is well, or the JVP-backed NPP is in power, that there will be some kind of closure on this chapter, on this dark chapter of our history?
Well, I'm not supremely confident that that would be the case, but I think there will be pressure on the government to investigate and all of that. But I'm not 100% sure, because, you know, the JVP has a very odd attitude towards this, no? And indeed, I mean, all the political actors in Sri Lanka, quite simply, I mean, they have blood on their hands.
Right, so, Ambika, do you want to add something?
Yes, because the curious thing is that the JVP actually has not, you know, as time went by, they forgot also the state terror and the people who were killed. So the families of the people who were killed completely bereft. And they've also quoted the armed forces, whereas the armed forces were also responsible for the violations against the JVP and the youth during the insurrection.
So, Jayantha, if you look at the tea industry, which you represent, you own a top 10 company in the tea export industry in Sri Lanka. One of the biggest problems that the industry faces is a suspended VAT, which was implemented from April 2025. What is the take on this? How do you think the industry should engage with the key stakeholders in this front?
Yeah, it's going to be a major problem for us, especially to the tea industry, because they are proposing to remove SVAT from April next year. We are still lobbying. Even before the last president, we went and met him and we told him not to do. He said he'll talk to IMF.
It was like pouring water into a duck's back.
Yes, he was not taking any note. But you know, the tea industry will have a serious issue because if we have to pay 18% at the time of buying tea at the auction, the producer will get 18% less because we are going to discount that money because we know we are not going to get that money back from the government. But we are telling the authorities, we are ready to pay VAT, but give us some kind of a time frame when you will return the money back, like 30 days or 45 days or whatever the date, because you know we work in other countries. They say, okay, 30 days you will refund the money, 45 days they refund the money. But here there are billions of rupees. I know apparel trade has to get more than 30 billion rupees from tea trade has to get a lot of money. So we can't work like that. You know, it's going to create another problem. Finally, the producers, we have about 2.5 million people living on the tea industry. They are going to affect.
So why isn't it, Jayantha, that you all don't meet as an industry and tell this to the incumbent president, Anurukumar Dissanayake, to see whether there is any way of salvaging this problem that is going to come into effect in 2025 April?
Yeah. No, we have told him before he was elected about this, and then now...
what did he say?
He was not sure what this problem was. He sort of said that I need to discuss and things like that. But now we are trying to meet him again and to tell him, because it's going to be a major problem.
So do you want to add to that?
Yeah, Samir, because you know this SVAT issue more than I think the industry, it affects the direct exporters, the industrial exporters like us in especially apparel and non-apparel as well, both BOIC. The thing is, the SVAT problem is two-pronged. One is about the refunds. Refund thing is separate. Now later on, when they have taken this SVAT out, I mean, those the items which does not cover, I mean, inadvertently the free meals that we provide and the transport that we provide to the employees also came into VAT net. And that is a big problem. So we have asked, and then the legislation is made, the draft act was made, but it never came through. So this is a problem.
So are you optimistic that Anurukumar Dissanayake would look at this? Because Jayantha just said that when they spoke to, as an industry, to Ranil Wickremesinghe said that he will speak to the IMF. And you don't want a president who tells you that.
Exactly. You know, because as Jayantha said, we've gone and addressed this issue to Ranil Wickremesinghe, the finance, their finance team, the ministry, the central bank, and also as he have directed, we have gone direct to this, the IMF and spoken to them also. At the beginning, they were passing the ball. It's not us, it's your government. Then the Inland Revenue says it's not us, it's IMF, and all sorts of things. But anyway, it didn't solve the problem. But we actually, as he said, Jayantha said that we also went and met, I mean, when we met him before the elections, Anurukumar, we particularly told that there is this big issue, SVAT problem. And today also, you know, we've sort of had an interaction on this
because
same
at the end
matter.
of the day, Jayantha said when he spoke to Anurukumar Dissanayake, he did not have an idea about it.
No, the thing is, no, it's that not that Anura had an idea, but his economic think tank knows this very well. And they were proposing certain alternative measures, I mean, other than VAT to solve this issue.
I want to just pick Jayantha's brain on this big issue that is plaguing the tea industry right now about liberalizing the tea industry. This has been spoken of by many respective plantation ministers, by TEA presidents, chairmen, CTTA chairmen and all that. But nothing concrete has taken place. Jayantha, do you believe that if you liberalize the country's tea industry under this government, which is Anurukumar Dissanayake's government, would we be able to make the tea industry more than a $2.5 billion industry for the country as we speak?
Yeah, I have been always lobbying, maybe last 20-25 years I have been on that group, but you know, now, you know, whatever the government, we had, President Ranil Wickremesinghe and before, they were talking to us, but, at the final stage, because of the pressure from the producer groups, they don't want to go ahead with it. But now if you look at the current president, he is more with people, and, I personally don't think it will happen.
But don't you think that he should take actions that are not popular as well?
Yeah.
Because if you look at the last 2 years, that's exactly what Ranil Wickremesinghe did. Took some decisions that were not in favor of many people.
Yeah.
So as he looked at creating a legacy for himself beyond that 5-year period as a president, do you think that he should take that decision at least for the sake of the country now?
Yes, he should take. We have proved them that tea industry can get about $4 billion. Now currently about $1.3 billion. We can go up to about $4 billion if we liberalize this industry. Because if you take India, they allow, other teas to come into India to value add and re-export. Now we are blocking everything in Sri Lanka. So we are only restricted to a particular quantity. So because of that, country like Dubai is prospering, Iran is doing well, Russia is doing good.
Dubai is doing well.
We are
not growing any tea. Not growing any tea. Dubai is doing well. So, Mr. Karan, one of your biggest sort of obstacles to the liberalization of the tea industry here in Sri Lanka would be people argue that it would dilute the value of the Ceylon tea brand. I believe even some of the unions have come out against the liberalization of tea, some of the plantation companies. Given that these are significant vote banks,
yes,
are you confident that the president will take any action on this? Or do you think that we're
especially, next 2 months, I don't think they'll do anything.
Yeah.
But, if you look at their,
So you think it will depend on their performance at the parliamentary election?
Correct.
Because,
if they want to get about $3-4 billion, for an income, they'll have to do it.
You can't grow more without
definitely, it's not going to affect the local producers. We have proved the local teas prices will go up by doing this, because we are bringing in more demand into the country.
So I have a question nothing, please. I want to ask a question from Ambika, which we've just received from one of our viewers. Until I get that vetted, I want to quickly ask Nishad. Nishad, now you all have three chairmen of the Sri Lanka Tourist Board at the moment. Four right now. Do you think that Anurukumar Dissanayake should go ahead and change these 4 as well, because they were individuals who were appointed by Harin Fernando?
I don't have an opinion on that. Basically, 4 chairmen were brought in because actually there are 4 different institutions. The Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority is the regulatory body. Then there are 2 promotional, one for MICE and one for general destination promotion, and of course the Sri Lanka Institute of Tourism Hotel Management, completely different setup. So I have been in the industry. I have seen it with 1 chairman. I have seen it with 4. The way I see it is that it's better to have 4, because then there is more concentration. Actually, we can bring that down to 3, because two promotional bodies can be merged. And if you bring that down to 3, because you find if it's 1 chairman who's handling all 3 institutions or all 4 institutions, there is his sort of focus gets broken up. Whereas this way you have the 3 of them or 4 of them working on the individual, whatever the focus is, that has to be there from that particular organization.
So Nishad, do you think we have tapped to the true potential of tourism in the last 2 years after the Aragalia?
No.
We have not. And
we have not, because like I said, every time it has started picking up. One is there has not been a promotional campaign. That campaign was
But what was Harin Fernando doing going around the world?
No, so Harin Fernando had went for all the promotion. I mean, when you're in the industry, you have to go for these various travel trade shows.
That was not part of the promotion campaign.
No, what I mean by a promotion campaign is you have to have a focused promotion campaign to promote the destination.
No, but there was a campaign.
So Sri Lanka, yeah.
So Sri Lanka was before that.
Right? So after that, come back for more.
So Come Back for More was launched, and the full global promotion and the social media was about to be rolled out. It should have been done end of August, early September, but that is another thing that we have written to the current president in our letter. Like I said, second month we have told him to kindly try and roll that out without, otherwise we go back again by another few years before we roll out a campaign.
Right, so I just got the message vetted while Nishad was talking. This question is for Dr. Sara and Ambika both. I think it's time to forget about the past and move forward. If not, in that case, we need to account for LTT bombs, killings and assassinations as well. After all, the LTT issue went on for 30 years. So do you think that it's time to forget and move forward in terms of the issues that we spoke about with regard to accountability and so on and so forth? So this question is for Dr. Sara, so I'll speak to Dr. Sara first and come back to you.
Sure.
Yes, Dr.
Sara. Well, this argument that you should forget and forgive, I just don't accept it. First of all, you need to know, in order to move forward, you need to know where you're coming from. If you're talking about unity and diversity of a multi-ethnic, multi-religious country, you have to ask yourself what is important to those communities. Look, the mothers of the disappeared, are they not citizens of Sri Lanka? Are they not entitled to the basic dignity of knowing what happened to their children, or in the case of their husbands, etc.? So we have to know what happened. We have to know what happened, and then it is up to the government of the day and civil society and all of that to ensure that those consequences are not divisive and certainly not violent.
Ambika?
I've been asked this question so many times that I can just put internal play button. Firstly, the armed conflict is a result of issues, discrimination, marginalization, and what we call the ethnic conflict, right? For which we need a political solution. So the political solution, still the Tamil community has not obtained that solution, which is also devolution of power. Secondly, where accountability is concerned, it's easy for someone not affected to say forget and forgive. But let's look at Lasantha Wickrematunge. His daughter just still wants justice. What about Tajuddin? They still want justice. And when Jaya Maha was given a pardon, people filed cases against that. What about Hirunika Premachandra? She wants justice, right? How is their demand for justice different to the demand of a Tamil woman or man demanding justice for someone who was murdered, etc.? And third point is that you can say, okay, let's forget everything I said and say that we can forgive and forget. What is happening now? Shall we talk about that? What about the presence of the military? What about surveillance, intimidation, harassment of former combatants, families of the disappeared, civil society, media? What about takeover of land?
Because 4 days in power.
No, I'm just saying I'm responding to that question. I'm responding to that question.
4 days in power, let the president
I think,
sink in. Jayantha, I just want to ask you a question about timelines. Now, there are a lot of timelines. Now, one of the timeline was about the pay tax. We all know the pay tax. If it doesn't make any changes, it has to come on the 1st of April 2025. Why? Yes. Because that's the beginning of the financial year. Yes. And up in November you have to declare your income, and then accordingly you have to pay by April. So by April 1st you can implement the new pay tax regimen. But there are other things. We spoke to Dhammika about it as well, about like the fuel price. The NPP had gone on political forums saying the 65 billion was the profit of the Ceylon Electricity Board. As such, they can do something now. They can reduce, so on and so forth. If hypothetically Anurakumar Dissanayake fails in these timelines, what would happen at the next election?
No, I think...
just 8 weeks away.
Yeah. He will definitely lower the fuel prices on the 1st, because he has to do something like that. One thing is they have said that they are making a huge profit, and also the election is next month, November. So he has to lower, and also electricity costs, they lower. But definitely the energy cost, electricity all can come down, but I think they need a fairly long-term plan. So I think when we spoke to the President Anurakumar that time before he became the President, I think he is very knowledgeable on that subject, on power and energy. He spoke to some people knowledgeable in this, and he explained exactly what they are planning to do. But I think his subject is that. So they have a long-term plan.
But so, Jayantha, I want to ask the same question that I asked Ambika and Dr. Sara with regard to accountability and reconciliation. Now, you are coming from a business background. Do you think this should be in the agenda of the new president?
Yes, because he is the president of the country, and he represents all the citizens of this country. So that is a part of, people are waiting for some justice.
Now you say that he is the president of the country, he has to be involved and engaged.
Yes.
What about the wage hike of the estate community workers? Now that has been a pressing issue, and that is something that even the exporters have been very much not vocal about.
No, actually we said now it is settled, it is now gazetted 1,350 plus some incentives. Because the problem was, what they said was to give it on incentive basis, like for contribution they make.
Yeah, but Jayantha, if you look at the pay slips of these estate workers, which was given to them on the 9th of September 2024, it said 950.
I'm not sure about that.
It has not been arrested, because if you look at the productivity incentive, you have to pluck 22 kilograms to get that 1,350. If not, you go back to square one.
Yeah.
So this
no,
is
actually
not really
it's 1,350 also not a reasonable wage for a person.
That's even lower than the minimum wage that has been stipulated by the government.
Correct. No, actually this entire thing is wrong. These RPCs, management, how they do it, and they say they have only another 3 or 4 years to go. I think they have to relook at the whole thing.
But why is it that you were also one time chairman of the TEA, that has been your role, Jayantha. We should not forget that. For full disclosure, for those who are watching the show tonight, nothing concrete has taken place. It's very unfortunate that these people are in limbo always.
Yeah. No, I personally believe the wage is not sufficient for them, and we have to work out something good. But the culture on the plantation sector, they have a problem. There are a lot of changes are needed. How they work, how they, the income they save. There is another side story to this. The plantation company saying they give their houses, they are maintained, the health, the maternity leave, all kinds of things are given. So that's another story. But I think we need to really look at it and change the whole thing, because this has been going on for more than 100 years now. So it's
need 150 years.
Yeah. 200 years.
Mr. Fernando,
anniversary.
Mr. Fernando, if I may, the Free Trade Zone Manufacturers Association is no stranger to disagreements with organized labor, with labor unions. With this change in government, do you feel that the dynamics of those disputes are changing or will change?
Well, first and foremost, I must tell you, when the seats are changing, to the other side, the table is turning, right?
Yeah.
So that they have to face the music. Okay. So therefore, but anyway, that's just something in a lighter vein. However, you see now the...
No, I didn't get that. Please elaborate. Now you are saying... no, I didn't get that, Dhammika. You say when the tables are turning, what does that mean? Now we are here to play the role of the devil's
now,
advocate.
for example, now
we know that there are a lot of JP trade unions in the free trade zone.
Yeah.
So you have to properly answer that question from...
All right, I'll do that. I'll do that. Okay. I would say, there are no NPP trade unions, but there have been JP trade unions. But so far, if you take the history of the trade union culture, like similar to our society, which has been kind of gone rogue, the trade union culture during, I know a very good trade unionist, that's Mr. Balathampo, and people like that were very, very sensible, people who are thinking trade unions. But there have been few trade unions which are not that, they're not thinking of both sides of the aisle. But
do you think it's because of their political affiliations?
Not because that is one thing which is quite strange, because they are not politically affiliated either. Now, take for example JVP trade unions. Well, in the apparel industry as well as in the free trade zones, I'm not talking about things outside or things about the history of their trade union things, but so far they've been acting very responsibly with our the associations, trade unions, and they've been talking, and we had good negotiations, and also collective bargaining is done properly. So we had no problems at all.
This union that you're referring to, sorry, just for clarity, is the General Services and Free Trade Zone Employees Union?
Yeah, I don't want to bring the name, but yes, that is one.
Okay. Right. This is the one in which Mr. Anton Marcus is the convener.
Yeah, they've been blackguarding the industry all around the world because it's too bad. Because if there's a problem, you could solve those problems internally. Why do you take it outside and bring down the whole industry?
No, but there are JP trade unions even in the Ceylon Electricity Board. So what would their role now be? Because now it's their government or their president. Would there be a change?
Your question I've answered before, right?
That was the lighter vein.
So in the line, what I mean is, do you now, from your position as being on sort of the other side now, for the Manufacturers Association, you have if some of the media reports are to be believed, a Marxist president. I don't actually think you have an entirely Marxist president, but he's being portrayed that way in some media reports as well. Do you feel that you'll have a tougher job now when it comes to negotiating with the unions?
It's a kind of a mixed feeling, but we would like to see in practice how it's going to work out. But since there are leaders are now coming to ministerial positions and things like that, so they'll have to balance all sides of the...
So hopefully, Mr. Fernando, somewhere down the line we can have you and some of the union representatives together on Face the Nation.
Of course, why not?
We can have this
and also
well.
talking about the wages thing, said now the national minimum wages increased to 21,000. We have no problem at all. We have never clamored because we are way above.
Oh yeah, I mean the minimum wage is a bit of a joke.
Yeah. So Nishad, now there seem to these presidential hopefuls prior to 21st of September, they seem to be having a magic wand prior to the elections, saying about when someone says we'll increase salaries by 10,000, the other says 15,000. Now there is a president in power, and he said the wages would be increased by 24%. Now this is a tall task for a country that has witnessed bankruptcy. Reducing the pay tax threshold to 24%. That was the claim that was made by the NPP prior to the elections as well. All these are tall tasks for a country which is looking at scraping the barrel in terms of its reserves and so on and so forth. Do you think all this will be just limited to words and not actions?
Actually, what I feel is that only time will tell whether they can keep their promises. There were different ways that this 24% was, it's not only the NPP, even SJB was talking about 24%, where certain level of income will be brought down to 24 and not go beyond that, and then the higher income brackets will
no, the NPP did not speak about the high income brackets. They said it's going to be brought down to 24%.
So that is basically, they also said that they were going to they were going to discuss and with the IMF about how they can make certain changes. I think, I don't know, I'm no expert in this field, but from what I understand, it's all about balancing your revenue. No, basically we have a issue with revenue. So all parties talked about how they can increase revenue, and the only way they were talking about increasing revenue is by taxation. Whereas only the NPP said was that they can also increase revenue by cutting costs, not increase revenue, but they can save money by cutting costs.
No, but if you look at Ranil Wickremesinghe's cabinet decisions that was taken prior to the elections, all this went on to show the direction of which to give relief to the people. Do you think those cabinet decisions would be reversed by the current president? No, they're saying Singhal is Nishad.
Chandagundu.
Yeah.
Chandagundu, yes.
Chandagundu is the one.
Yeah. So I feel that was something that did happen. There's no question. I'm absolutely, I have no political affiliations to anyone. Just looking at from an industry point of view, having spoken with the different parties like Jan said even before they came in, I felt that these guys have studied, I mean, from a tourism industry point of view, they certainly have studied the issues and they have come up with a tourism policy which needs further discussion, obviously, with the industry, but I feel that they have, and also the important thing is that they have given tourism the priority industry status, which is what they promised. And by the president himself taking a subject like tourism directly under him, I feel that side of it is being, that promise is being kept.
Yeah, Nishad, you now mentioned the NPP tourism policy and how, President AKD has taken the Ministry of Tourism under him. So you said that also the master plan that has been proposed in the tourism policy of the NPP needs to be subject to further discussion.
Yeah.
Where do you think they need to start exactly? What are the initiatives that they need to give priority to right off the bat?
I think just absolute short term, we needed to have this the visa issue sorted. We had the global campaign going, and then of course the other one was with relation to the unregulated businesses that are happening. Now, with regard to that, we have, even in the past, we have continuously said that the tourism, if you go by the Tourism Act, nobody can provide a tourism service unless they are actually registered with the Tourism Development Authority and they are in the formal sector. Whereas now, if you look at it, just as a simple example, we have registered rooms in Sri Lanka. We have around 47,000 rooms in Sri Lanka, which are registered formal sector with the SLTDA. Whereas if you go on booking.com or any of those platforms, it's close to 100,000. So clearly, there are more unregistered than registered. So I feel that all of those people need to be brought into the formal sector.
Yes. So what is the target for a year in terms of tourist arrivals to the country? Because we had 3 members of the NPP saying that the target is 4 million, and then we asked them, with only 100,000 rooms available in the country, can we cater to that 4 million?
No, so 4 million is not going to come overnight. No, 4 million is the target that they are looking at for 2028, 2030, right? And with a revenue of around $10 billion US dollars. what we say is as the sector or the stakeholders responsible for bringing in around 60 to 65% of tourists into the country from the formal sector, we are confident that if these issues that we have raised are fixed, we are very confident that.
So, Dr. Sara, although just one more thing, Mr. Wijetunga, now, although the political establishment, let's say, has changed in the past 4 days, a lot of the bureaucracy remains the same throughout. And now I did mention earlier that, at some of these sort of illegal businesses or illegitimate businesses that are being operated, some of the events that are being run, we have seen instances where the police themselves are providing security, right? In that kind of a context, even in spite of the political establishment changing, do you feel that there be any kind of motivation on the part of police officers, the OICs of the individual police stations to actually go out and take action again?
Yeah, the way I see it is, if you, I mean, this is my analysis, not nothing tourism-wise, but if you saw obviously you were watching the results coming in, when you saw the postal vote results coming in, a majority were for the NPP. That clearly shows that there was a big chunk of the public sector that voted for them. So now, with their candidate or with a president that they have clearly voted for, it is up to them to pull their socks up and do what has to be done.
All right, Dr. Sara, now one of the biggest issues that we spoke about prior to the elections dates were announced was the removal of the removal of IGP by the court. But we expected Anurukumara Dissanayake to make a swift decision when he was appointed as a president. Do you see this as a failure?
Well, I suppose the decision with regard to appointing the IGP, he may well want to go back to the Constitutional Council, and then there is the question of that Parliament has been dissolved, and so you won't have all the members of the Constitutional Council.
So 2 months again, running up to the elections, we won't have a IGP?
Well, that's possible. Or, on the other hand, we might be surprised.
Now, Ambika, Ambika, you were nothing. Just this question, please. Ambika, you were somewhat very vocal against the Yuktiya program that was happening in the country, and today, when Anurukumara Dissanayake was addressing the nation, he spoke about public service and law, and he said that he pledges to create an efficient, honest public service and uphold the rule of law, ensuring that all citizens are equal before the law and that public service aligns with national goals. Now, what do you think the president should do with regard to these programs that were implemented prior to the polls?
Stop Yuktiya. I think I was very vocal about that. Stop Yuktiya, because they weren't actually seizing the large amount of drugs were not actually seized during Yuktiya. They've actually seized at sea.
But
so
we didn't see the NPP really talking about these programs prior to the election. We saw the SJB.
They did not.
Yeah, we did not hear the NPP really speaking about it. But we saw the SJB voicing some concerns here and there.
Well, actually, to be honest, none of them really spoke out against it, because everyone thinks because it is drugs, they're scared. If they speak out against it, then they will be called a drug dealer. And I think they don't understand the nuances of it and the background, the information. Hence, they're afraid when they say something and the government counters, they will not be able to, push back. So I would say where Yuktiya is concerned, and I think the JVP is also, the NPP is very aware of my position and everything I have said and written on it and why, which I have shown with evidence. So my advice to the President and to the Minister of Justice, Dr. Harini Amarasuriya, would be, and to the Minister of Public Security, is stop it if they have not stopped it yet.
Dr. Sara, if I may, on the issue of law enforcement as well, we saw that some of the things that the NPP and SJB, one of the things that they had in common was this idea to establish an independent public prosecutor's office, which would depoliticize this. The anti-corruption framework that is in place now is a lot different to what was in place in 2015 when the Yahapalani administration came in. We now have, there's an anti-corruption act, there's a Proceeds of Crime Act that I hope the NPP will continue working on and will pass at the next parliament. There's also a Judicature Amendment Act that established the special high courts that are in place right now but aren't really being used as much. Do you feel that the NPP is better placed than the Yahapalani administration was to take action on incidents of major corruption simply because the anti-corruption framework is much different to what it was in 2015?
No, I'll tell you what is the real issue here. If the NPP or JVP, whatever, if they are able to get a majority to form a government, then there are no excuses whatsoever. The problem with the comparison to the Yahapalani government, of course, is that there were two different parties. Whereas if they have one party, if we have one party that is at government, and there should be no issue with regard to proceeding on their anti-corruption policies, as far as I'm concerned.
Do you feel that the NPP will continue with the legislative on some of the things? Because in today's speech as well, we saw, while he didn't mention anything specific, for me at least, when he was talking about things like, society is known by how you treat your most vulnerable, including animals. For me, that was a signal that, oh, maybe this man is serious about passing the Animal Welfare Act. When he was talking about the place of women, even though he didn't mention it specifically, for me, it was like, oh, maybe this guy is going to be serious on MMDA reforms, the Muslim Marriages and Divorces Act, reforming that as well. Do you feel that, having listened to it as well, do you feel that it was somewhat of a, not mentioning specifics, but laying out a legislative agenda? Or do you feel that it was just a rhetorical speech?
Well, I mean, it's a bit of a sort of honeymoon, no? Because until he has a parliamentary election and he has a government with a majority that supports him in parliament, we can't do any of these things as such. So that he is putting them out as an agenda is a bit of a hostage to fortune. Because if he does come in with a government of his own, then we can hold him to account.
So, Dhammika, you were also the president of the Chartered Institute of Personal Management as well. Today's speech speaks about, Anurukumar Dissanayaka's speech speaks about education and the youth. He says that he promises to improve education, ensuring quality education for every child, and building a promising future by fostering knowledge and skills among the youth. How important is this for the future prospects of Sri Lanka?
It's very important. In fact, even the CEO of Chartered Institute today, had a conversation with me on this issue about why not we meet the president as early as possible, talk about these things. You see, the vocational training and the tertiary education beyond the academic education in universities is quite important. And we feel that we need to kind of revamp this tertiary education system, which can go beyond our shores, right? To be par with any other country where our people are skilled and having qualified, getting license and all sorts of things. Because even in developed countries, you see, without a license, you cannot practice even a carpenter or a mason or a plumber or whoever it is. Because they are professionally qualified and they are getting licensed. So we need to have some sort of system like that, because today, that is why, the youth is ignoring this tertiary education. Take, for example, 200 odd technical colleges around the country are vacant. Very few was occupied. Why? Because there is no emphasis on the tertiary education of the country. And we need to give emphasis and purpose and sort of value to that. And then only the youth will come, without putting a three-wheeler into the park.
Right. So, Jayantha, before I wrap up and give you all an opportunity to speak in your final round, what are the biggest challenges facing exporters at this moment of time? We spoke about the tea industry because it's closer to your heart as well. What are the biggest challenges faced by the exporters right now? And what must Anurukumar Dissanayaka do to address these issues in the short, medium and long term?
Definitely there are a lot of things to be done. Number one is to address this SWAT issue is very important to us. And also, there are many things we have started long time ago and we have not done. The exporters are asking various things. Now, there are some WTO agreements we have signed, we have not fulfilled them. So, those are very long overdue. And then, the Madrid Protocol is something, the trademark issues we have been asking. There are many issues we are asking them to handle. I think it's too early because, we are only 1 or 2 weeks, only 4 days.
4 days.
Yeah. So I think maybe we'll have to discuss.
We're trying to set the stage now itself.
Yes. And also another thing we are looking for is automation. Automation is very important. We spend a lot of time. Digitalization, sorry, not automation, digitalization. We are spending a lot of time, going to various government officers to handle things. So this digitalization is something we have been asking for it, and it has to be done.
So now the President's Secretary is from the Customs Department, and we hope that he would at least take the initiative to correct course in terms of this.
Yes.
Sami, can I add one to that?
Yeah.
As he said, digitalization is very important, going paperless and minimizing human interaction. But at the same time, now that you said 4 days by now, before taking any action on any particular industry, it is very important that they discuss with the industry. And give pragmatic and sort of possible solutions which can be implemented rather than something which is given from a think tank or something. A discussion and a conversation with industry is very important.
Right.
So that is how we can...
So Jayantha, with regard to reforming state-owned enterprises, right now we saw there was a rollout on this under the stewardship of Sirasa, right, Natif? That was ongoing at the moment. What would happen to all this? Because we know the NPP is somewhat was a far left party, which is a JVP. Now they seem to be center left.
Yes.
So what would happen to all this?
But I think my personal view is they will have to relook at the whole thing. They have started something, they have gone a little, studied. But I think NPP will look at the whole thing again because especially those areas need a lot of changes.
But they have been very clear that when it comes to companies like, I believe, Sri Lanka Telecom, also Milko, a few others, that it's non-negotiable, that they will not divest.
The strategic industries.
Right? They have already said that they're not going to divest.
How do you view this, Jayantha? Is this going to be another problematic area for...
Do you think they'll be forced to reconsider that?
I think they'll have to reconsider all those things because, with these policies of NPP, they need to look at it.
Yeah, just one quick question for you, if I may, Ambika, on broader human rights, away from specifically the North and East and the conflict situations, the terror and the war. So the big issues that we had in the recent past, you take, for example, the Online Safety Act.
I was just thinking
you mentioned that, you are completely against people being locked up for things they say online, right? Do you think that the NPP will heed the call to repeal the Online Safety Act? I mean, at times there were people even on the campaign trail, many pundits who were saying, whoever comes in next needs to bring in an omnibus bill that repeals the Online Safety Act, the ICCPR, and the...
But we also didn't say that they would amend. One of them said that they would amend and not repeal.
We saw Kavna Jayawardena from the SJB saying, hailing that bill, saying that he took decisions with regard to it as well.
Well, they must.
Yeah. They must do what?
They must repeal it. Entirely scrap it. There is no amendment. That law needs to go.
Right. Nishad, A question for you. I want to give an opportunity to Theruni as well. Theruni, do you want to go first?
No, of course. I'll go after you.
Right.
All right.
We are trying to create a tourist shopping hub in Sri Lanka, but we are one of the most expensive countries to shop, especially for branded goods, due to our customs duty structure. Most Sri Lankans who can afford these branded goods don't shop in Sri Lanka anyway. They go to countries like Malaysia. So why don't you just have a duty-free regime for branded goods, which will enhance the position of Sri Lanka as a shopping destination as well, as Sri Lankans shopping more in Sri Lanka, as Sri Lankans would shop more in Sri Lanka?
Actually, shopping, I really don't see Sri Lanka as a shopping destination. Sri Lanka is a very diverse, we are blessed actually, and we have a very diverse product. So we really I don't think we need to have shopping as an option to bring, to attract tourists to come here, because we have a lot to offer, ranging from natural beauty to culture to history to wildlife to everything.
But is that enough to bring in, to raise the, because I'm not sure what the target they mentioned was, or I'm not sure if there's a target, but we've seen some of the parties saying that they want to have tourism as a $10 billion industry, right?
Yes.
So, for example, without developing things like, well, shopping is one, but let's say MICE tourism overall, can you really look at reaching those numbers without that kind of development?
No, the development has to be there. I'm not saying that the development doesn't have to be there. And also, this is what we have been talking about, and this is what we have. If the private sector, I mean, end of the day, tourism is 100% private sector industry, no? So if the private sector is allowed to, given the leeway. Now, one of the issues we actually spoke about the chairmans of the different institute. I mean, if you want to have one chairman to cut down costs and make sure, that is fine, provided they look after the different aspects of the promotion. Promotion is the biggest thing. And remember, tourism doesn't depend on any money from the treasury, right? We contribute 1% of our turnover to in terms of tourism development levy. Right now, that fund is close to 7 or 8 billion, right? The issue that we have is when it comes to these promotions and everything, because it's governed by government AR and FR, right? We do the entire process, and when it comes to launching, there is issue because nobody wants to take the responsibility. I mean, mind you, if you go fully with the Tourism Act that is in place at the moment, if you enact it fully, the boards have full the responsibility, and if they approve it, nobody can say anything because there is a big private sector participation. Especially if you look at the promotion bureau board, of the 11 members, 6 are from the private sector.
Yeah, right. Jayantha, very quick question. I want to, but
No,
you go ahead. You go.
All right.
You go ahead.
My question
I'll
was
ask
to Dhammika. I wanted to ask this question. So the economic policy of the NPP says that various initiatives will be activated to increase the efficiency and productivity of trade zones in the country. After all, trade zones are very important as it can, employ a lot of people to expand the economy and all that. So in your opinion, what are the key areas now, since it was just a broad outline that was given in the NPP policy, what are the specifics that you suggest the government should look into first?
Well, you see, you may have remembered that the previous government has brought in a thing called the Economic Transformation Act. In that Economic Transformation Act, well, it's a kind of, I mean, I just don't discount it in toto. But see, they brought in some in its preamble some of the economic measures, numbers and things like that about the GDP, debt to GDP, and the primary accounts, the balance of payment and all these things. But thereafter, what they have done as the action plan is just about the BOI, to separate BOI into three, four, five entities. And in my view, that's really a kind of a, I would say, a white elephant.
Okay.
Right? Because, it creates many institutions to do the same thing what right now the Board of Investment and the EDB is supposed to do.
So what's the alternative?
Yeah,
do you feel that this should be repealed as well?
What I expect from the government or the current government or whatever the future government is that make the BOI efficient, right? It's investment arm, then the investor services arm, and then about the industrial relations part of it, and the things like promoting investment. Now that it is not happening at all, right? Now you can see that they've been given targets of bringing in investments of around about 1.5 billion during the last budget, as far as I remember, but how much that they could manage to bring, right? And also the NPP is always talking about Vietnam in a year, but investment is brought by Vietnam in a year. It's been brought by all of the last many years by the country, in Sri Lanka, 44 billion or something, right? 22 billion, I don't know. So
making Sri Lanka a Vietnam cannot happen overnight.
No, it cannot happen overnight, I understand. But has it happened in the last 44 years? Has it happened during the last 44 years? What have we done? We only have improved our apparel industry. And apparel industry is the only industry right now bringing in the highest revenue.
So you're optimistic that an NPP government can do that?
I'm quite optimistic because it's given, they've been talking to industry also and make a lot of plans. But the thing is, they have to go in the right direction in doing that, because there need to be total overhauling of BOI to do that.
Right.
Not like separating into number of entities.
So Dr. Sara, a lot of promises were made by the NPP at political fora. When the SJB says something, they would counter it. When the Ranil Wickremesinghe administration says something, they would counter it. But all this is not going to come easy. It takes time, it takes effort, it takes expertise, because we all know Rome was not built in a day. It took hundreds of years to build Rome. So how difficult is the task ahead for the NPP?
It's very difficult and very challenging, not just for the NPP, but any government that came into power, because there are fundamental changes that have to be made. We have to rebuild our social contract. But as far as the NPP is concerned, I think the area that they should focus on in terms of, wanting to hold the support of the people who voted for them and all of that is corruption. If they don't do something demonstrable, visible on corruption, and I'm not talking here about catching small fry. They have to put a known name, big name, behind bars. And the question is, do they have the evidence to convict that person in a court of law?
Dr. Sara, we saw hundreds of files being brought by individuals.
Yes, but do we have the evidence in those files to convict them in a court of law? If the standards of evidence...
Dr. Sara, did you think it was strange that in his speech today, President Dissanayake didn't really touch on corruption all that much?
Well, someone must have told him then that, look, you've been going on about corruption, take a break from it. But
too much.
But as far as the public is concerned in this country, the anger, the disgust and all of that was with regard to corruption, lack of accountability with regard to impunity. So he has to do something.
Who do you think he got the advice from, Dr. Sara? The Rajapaksas?
What?
You said he was advised by someone not to talk about corruption. Question the Nadim.
I have no idea who's advised. Who knows? You may even have called him up and told him.
Right. Jayantha, before we wrap up, I just want to ask you a quick question now. You spoke about the liberalizing of the tea industry in the country. But if you look at the big boys of the tea industry in Sri Lanka, the top 3 or top 4, all of them have gone outside the country and set up shop. So do you think the industry as a whole would have the will to liberalize the tea industry in the country, because all what they have spent overseas will be in vain and we are back to square one again?
No, we have a lot of opportunities for liberalization. you know, many companies are going abroad because we all feel that there is no room for us to expand in Sri Lanka. We have 300 million, now it has come to 260 million kilos annually. We are one of the most expensive place for tea. So, you know, there's very little room for us to improve. The tea industry is not growing. So the best thing is to go out. So, but only thing is, if we have a clear decision to liberalize, people will come back. You know, there are big companies like even Unilever wanted to set up things here. So they went back from Sri Lanka in 1990s because Sri Lanka government was not willing to give them facilities.
Even Ahmed Tea
went back
to Dubai.
Yeah, so big boys here have gone out. So the reason is we have a very close...
Are you one of the boys who have left the country as well, Jayantha?
We have some things outside, yes.
So you are not optimistic about the country's economy at all?
No, we know with the political system it will not happen.
Right, okay. At least some pessimism. Right, so let's start off with Nishad Wijetunga. What is the way forward for Sri Lanka, and if there is any advice for the newly elected government, which is only 4 days old, what would that advice be as we are nearing another general election? And what must the people keep in mind when they go to the polling booth on the 14th of November 2024? We'll start off from you, 2 minutes.
Okay. So what basically, if I look at it from a tourism point of view, there is around 10% of our population that depends on the industry. There are a lot of small, so it does matter a lot to the government to make sure that the industry is taken care of, and I think they have taken a step in the right direction at the moment. If you're talking about the election, I also feel that having a hung parliament is not going to allow them to do anything. So it is important for them to try and have at least that 113 or whatever magical number that they always talk about.
130.
Similarly, I don't agree that two-thirds majority is the answer either, because that's not going to happen, and it's proved in the past that it's not the ideal situation. So, but still, a stable government is definitely required. And I think, judging by what we saw in the election over the weekend, I think it is important for His Excellency Mr. Dissanayake to ensure that he wins something he said in his initial speech when he was sworn in. It is important for him to win the trust of the people who didn't vote for him, if he wants to make sure that he can achieve this in the parliamentary election. And sadly, I think as a country we have gone on for too long with too many hung parliaments and various deals being traded and people coming in from one party jumping into the next, and all of that. So hopefully, one thing in favor of the JVP or the NPP is that they have not taken on people from other parties, and they say that they will not. So if that is the case, then they need to ensure that they will have sufficient numbers in parliament to have a stable government, which is what we actually need.
Will we see something like 1977?
I don't think that is also the answer.
Right. Thank you very much, Nishad Wijetunga, Chairman of the Sri Lanka Association of Inbound Tour Operators. Dhammika Fernando.
Yeah, Samir, I think I have not done justice to Theruni's question as a whole, because it takes time. I need time, but probably it may be a conversation for another time. Anyway, because I can give a lot of things, when it comes to the foreign investment and the BOI enterprises and all that, because that is a very important area of our economy per se. So there are a lot of things that need to be done in order to bring in investment, like, to the tune of about, say, 20-30 million rupees to the country. But anyway, an advice which I can give to the government is that, they, as I have started at the beginning, that economic priorities for the new government is the most important. But while while having said that, this, stopping corruption and then recovery of stolen assets, that is one thing the people are expecting of this country, but probably I do not know that how far that they can go in that path during this 2 months' time to prove to the people, but it's already proven. They have started talking about this, bringing in vehicles and things like that, right? There is something not stolen, but then it seems that, the sanity coming into the scene. And then the other one is, as I've started, expansion of the economy. It is very, very important in the sense that which leads to sustainable recovery and the business growth, especially MSMEs. That's the micro and small and medium scale enterprises bringing into the economy. If you facilitate fast, right, like giving the things like the moratoriums, debt facilitation and all that to the SMEs, that they will come out fast, and then that itself will drive the economic growth, I suppose. And then again, the short-term measures such as debt relief, as I said, and those low-hanging fruits like tourism. Improving tourism, it can be done quite easily, and then facilitating foreign currency inflows to the country likewise, and then the other medium-term job creation and national debt management, some other things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. We are running short of time. Yes. Now moving to Jayantha Karunaratne.
Yes, what our advice is, we were all looking for corruption-free environment and the business-friendly. What we want is, more efficient, business-friendly environment. All the exporters, all business people. What we want is without any blocks. I know, there are many embassies informed the Ceylon National Chamber that, there are so many projects on hold in the last 1 or 2 years because their approvals are not given, for obvious reasons. Reasons are, not, the kickbacks. So, those are investment into the country. So, if you remove those, definitely these people can do better. So, what is needed is a corruption-free. You don't need to do much, if you don't have that, and to look after the people, then definitely they can do better.
Right. Thank you very much, Jayantha Karunaratne. Ambika Satkunanathan.
So if they are elected and form a government, my list would be repeal the Prevention of Terrorism Act, repeal the Online Safety Act, do not bring a repressive NGO law, abolish the death penalty, decriminalize same-sex conduct, so repeal 365, sections 365 and 365A of the Penal Code. We do not want a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. When they draft laws, it should not be at the whim and fancy of a minister. Consult stakeholders, consult experts. Abide by Sri Lanka's international legal obligations, and where accountability is concerned, it has to be holistic. So you cannot say we only want accountability for corruption and not accountability for police torture or not accountability for war crimes. Accountability is everything and it's all interlinked. In the short term, 3 things. This is very important, so I will say it. What the president actually can do literally overnight. First one, there is the Public Security Ordinance, Section 12. Sirasa, Gotabaya, Ranil Wickremesinghe have all used Section 12 and issued a gazette every single month where they call out the military to maintain public order, which is militarization of policing. Military should not be involved in policing, maintaining public order, arresting people, etc. The last gazette was issued on the 27th of August by President Ranil Wickremesinghe. So now, in 2 days, Anurukumara Dissanayake should not reissue it. We should not have that. Second thing, Human Rights Council resolution coming up in a few weeks. They should agree to a consensus resolution, ensure that we do not have to go for a vote. Third thing, as Commander-in-Chief and Head of the Armed Forces and the Minister of Defense, he can ensure that he makes the calls the military away from engaging in things like surveillance, monitoring, all sorts of other state activities. Do that immediately.
Right. Thank you very much, Ambika Satkunanathan. Dr. Paikiasothy Saravanamuttu, I'm going to ask you a question. I'm not going to let you have your concluding remarks yet.
Okay. All right.
Hung Parliament, Dr. Saravanamuttu. Now, we saw hung parliaments in 2002. Chandrika Bandaranaikumarasinghe was the president, the UNP leader, still leader, Ranil Wickremesinghe was the prime minister. 2015, Maithripala Sirisena was the country's president. It was Ranil Wickremesinghe who was the country's prime minister. What is your message for the voter in 2024, 14th of November?
I think my message for the voter would be to vote as many people as possible to vote for a government that will get a majority in Parliament. Because, you know, the thing is this, if the JVP, NPP do not get the 113, who are they going into coalition with? I mean, that's a big question for me. I can't come up with an easy answer.
Tamil
to
parties.
Huh?
Tamil parties.
But okay, so what, 5 or 6 votes?
And the Muslim party.
They would get about 20 seats.
So if they get 100 by the
26.
calculation, then 13 should be okay.
Your 2 minutes.
No, so now, okay, you want to know what I would suggest that they do before an election, what the president should be doing before an election. I mean, I think he should do 2 things. One is that if he wants to win the election, he should identify those constituencies that didn't vote for him and ask himself what he can do without requiring parliament or legislative approval. And I think the Tamil community is the key as far as that's concerned. And he can do a number of things there, like, for example, announce that he will implement the 13th Amendment in full, bring back all of those things, right? Secondly, I think he has to also keep on track and keep in the electorate's eye that he is actually seriously committed to doing something on anti-corruption. And even if there are gestures at this point, he needs to continue with that. Because I think those are the 2 planks on which he was elected. That everyone else messed things up. We are the new kids on the block and we need to be given a chance. And 2, we are the only ones who will do anything on corruption.
Thank you very much, Dr. Paikiasothy Saravanamuttu, Executive Director of the Center for Policy Alternatives, Ambika Satkunanathan, one-time Commissioner of the Human Rights Commission of Sri Lanka, Jayantha Karunaratne, Chairman of the National Chamber of Exporters, Dhammika Fernando, Chairman of the Free Trade Zone Manufacturers Association, as well as Nishad Wijetunga, Chairman of SLITO, or Sri Lanka Association of Inbound Tour Operators. Thank you very much, gentlemen and the lady, for joining us this evening on Face the Nation. Thank you very much, Theruni. Thank you very much, Nadine, for joining us on Face the Nation as well. It's too early to say and predict what the new president is going to do, but only time will tell whether those are in the right direction in terms of the interest of the general public at large. I leave you tonight with a quote, as I always do. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. Have you taken that step? Time will tell. Take care and good night.